Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode. I am K Marvel.
I'm QS.
I'm the big stretch.
No Striker Dragoon.
And this is the Four Corners of Commentary. Respect and rest in power to Chadwick Boseman. Just want to say real quick, we thank you for your representation of some of the most important people and important characters in our culture. So to all the family and friends who knew him, and to everybody who felt that strength from his roles, stay strong, keep your head up. 2020. Damn. All right. So, on today's episode, we will be speaking about factions, which is basically a group of wrestlers, normally 3 or more people. I know we did trios before, but factions are typically 3 or more. Excuse me. I apologize. Water. So, QS, we're going to start with you, bro.
All right. When we talk about factions, there's so many. There's always a long history, as we know. A faction is basically a stable of course, 2 people, and the whole point of that faction and stable is to ensure dominance or power on whatever roster that they are on. Whether it's attaining so many titles or whether it's just imposing their will, making that statement, making sure that the statement is made, their presence is felt. And, I know everybody knows I'm like this, I'm an avid Undertaker fan. Everybody would think, like, of course, go with factions. I'd go with the usual, the Ministry of Darkness.
Which is what we thought. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah.
Unanimously at that.
We were part of that group.
But one thing you, as in this podcast lately, that you should know about QS is you never assume what QS is actually going to do. So you can't. So I decided not to even go with that. But I felt that I would go with the faction that they had. Not only did they have so much history individually, but they also have probably one of the greatest interesting songs of all time. I decided to go with, of course, I'm staying with WWE on this one. I went with Evolution.
Okay, good choice.
Perfect choice.
And of course,
Evolution is a mystery.
Of course, literally one of the greatest interesting songs of all time with Evolution, with not even Evolution, Line in the Sand. Not even that. They had probably one of the vignettes of them forming Evolution. We know that it came with an idea of Triple H to basically, came up with this idea to have like this modern day 4 horsemen. And of course, Triple H decided, like, pitched this idea, and it was like, hey, you help your friend Ric Flair, pick himself back up when he was going through a little rut. You help him get back into the traditional things to get relevancy back. You have Ric Flair representing the past. You have Triple H representing the present, as he's the game, the cerebral assassin. Ric Flair is his mentor. He's the mentee. He's the current school teacher, but at the same time, you have these 2 legends mentoring also 2 upstarts that's going to end up being that's molded as the future of the business, which is in Randall Keith Orton and Dave Bautista. So it's so funny. It makes sense for these 2, with all the vignettes, you see them like coming out of the helicopter. For a point in time, everybody didn't know that it was actually going to be Batista. That would have been the 4th man. I think the 4th person before they were even thinking about was going to be Mark Jindrak. And that didn't. And of course, Mark Jindrak, that didn't work out. He just was a little bit too immature. He didn't have. Wasn't too immature. He just didn't fit the mold. He didn't fit that mold of it. So that's when they just said, screw it. We'll go with Batista. Of course, Batista was much older, clearly, like in the grand scheme of things, as in the business, much older, but still he was willing to learn and he kicked up. You could see Randy and Batista, they were learning. They're learning from legends. And this was like, and they're riding together. The guys are riding together. They're going everywhere together. It just, they're building that bond, and then they're really making their presence felt on Raw. It got to a point in time where Evolution, where Triple H was the World Heavyweight Champion, Randy was the Intercontinental Champion, and Batista and Ric Flair were the Tag Team Champions. So this was a point in time where, as the males, they had all the gold on that brand, on that roster, and they and even there with Evolution, they even helped. They were helping Triple H keep that title for as long as they could. Like, it just made sense. It just worked. I mean, ultimately, while they had a very good run, I will say this, like, Evolution had like a pretty good run for, like, I guess you could say they probably had a good run for at least maybe 2 years, almost maybe 3, almost 3. It was good. It was a very lengthy run. Like, it was a very lengty run. It was almost akin to, you know, the McMahon Helmsley era, or even to, like, back then when he was trying to, like, this Evolution is, to me, is maybe the modern day Four Horsemen, but I felt like it was such an added upgrade from before when Triple H was trying to do 2-man power trip. This is like, if things that happened, Triple H didn't get injured with the whole 2-man power trip stint, this is what you see right now of Evolution. That probably would have been just as long and just as deadly from when that faction was going on. But, you know, ultimately, Evolution ended up breaking up, mainly because, you know, being as Triple H he's supposed to be the leader. Of course, the leader he feels he's the only one that has to be the guy. So when Randy Orton won the World Heavyweight title from the likes of Chris Benoit, you know, instead of everybody being happy for Randy, instead they do the signature, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down, and basically ousted Orton from the group. So that was it. Randy was out of Evolution just because of that, because Triple H just couldn't accept that somebody else has the title that you're supposed to have. He just, in his mind, he's supposed to be the man. He's supposed to have the belt. He's supposed to have that belt. And then at the same time, it also, when Batista won the Royal Rumble, that also caused more dissension into the group because Triple H behind the scenes was trying to like work his magic to try to convince Batista to go to SmackDown and take the WWE Championship from the likes of JBL instead of coming after him. Of course, you know, that led into a series. That led to a series. Of course, the 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs down led to a whole series. You know, Batista went, you know, gave Triple H the spine buster, gave him the Batista bomb through the table, you know, ended that. That ended it, you know. Batista ended up taking the title from Triple H at WrestleMania, and not only that, actually ended up defeating Triple H, not even just once, a couple more times in that series. Those series of matches at that time, Triple H never beat Batista. So you solidified it, and you see it like Batista's. It's like, yes, they're the future. You know, Randy Orton was still with his Legend Killer gimmick, but Batista was like labeled as, he was the animal. He was the guy. He was now the guy. He was the man. This is what it was. And, you know, Triple H and Flair, you know, they I wouldn't say like they faded into obscurity. They just went and they were just basically, that was it. Evolution like eventually just dissolved. They went into their own things. But as you can see, Evolution ended up being such a key integral part, because even then, Evolution then, there was a couple of times where, you know, Evolution had like the little mini reunions. And of course, you know, no love lost. Of course, Orton never, like, he always felt a way about it because, you know, he still was salty about, you know, getting outed like that. You know, Batista, you know, he was already going on to better things. He was going to be a movie star. You know, Flair, at that time, Flair retired. And, you know, Triple H was just, he was doing his own thing. You know, he was actually being the COO and everything. But then Evolution had officially, like, technically returned when they went and had a feud with the Shield, with the likes of the Shield. They won some great matches, two good matches with those factions, between the Shield and Evolution. And, you know, and even then, Flair even kept coming out and giving the Shield his blessing, saying that they're up next. They're the faction to look out for. So it's like it's always so funny to see, in a sense, while together the Evolution was such a dominant force, but it was so, in the end, it's like you could say like ego got in the way and actually ended that dominant reign. Like you could see, like, you know, as a team, it was almost nobody was really beating Evolution. But really what defeated Evolution, what dissolved it, was Evolution itself, everyone's egos. Because everybody, all of these guys could have been the man. They were all the man at one point in time in their respective careers. So it just got to that point where it's just like, you know, we can't. That's how you know, like, in the end, they're always gonna have some type of strife, because they all feel that they can still be the guy. They can't even like just be as one unit or somebody live vicariously through the other. Everybody is always, in the end, it's like they all look out for themselves. But that, you know, that's my faction. I'd start that way.
I think something cool about Evolution too was that was that, you know, and Triple H has said this, you know, through his promos and once everything was over, even in interviews and other things. I mean, they really made Orton and Batista the stars that they are. I mean, just imagine you being in their position and having two of the best in the game, giving you their input, giving you, you know, how to walk, how to talk, how to move sometimes. You know, imagine how much input they gave them for their matches and other things. It really did solidify them to become the two of the top guys of that era. And I mean, even the fact that both of them had feuds with Triple H that once again solidified them to truly be in main event status. I think Evolution is I don't want to call them underrated, but I think people forget how dominant and how important they really are. I mean, even the match, I'm sorry, but even the match between, was that WrestleMania 20 between Evolution minus Triple H against The Rock and Mankind? I mean,
Rock and Sock,
that match in itself, you know, it was, Evolution truly was not a mystery because Evolution was there for destruction, and that's what they did.
I think that I don't think you could find a perfect name for a group as far as like what the dynamic was. Triple H has this really good promo when Evolution, quote unquote, debuts on Raw, where he talks about the past, the present, and the future of the WWE. And it really, like the way the group is constructed, it really is an offshoot of the Four Horsemen. Like you have you have two young up and coming stars in this case, and Randy Orton and Batista, who are the future, who would become the future of WWE. You know, they put Batista in the tag team with Flair, which I thought was masterful because, you know, like you said, sitting under the learning tree of Ric Flair and Triple H, I don't think if you can't succeed at that point, you know, I don't know if, you know, I don't think the wrestling business would be for you, but you know, you have the future in those two. You have the present in Triple H, who was the world champion. He was like the focal point, maybe, you know, for different discussion for another day. A lot of people would say to the detriment of Raw. I know as a fan, booking aside, it's one of my more favorite and memorable times of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
I did love watching during the Ruthless Aggression era when Evolution was on top. And you have the past in Flair, like, and he puts over, in the promo, Triple H puts over Ric Flair so powerfully, you know, saying like he was the diamond of this business, you know, and everything that he is, I am now, because I'm the world champion. You know, it was a perfect name because you literally are going from the past of the business to the present, Triple H, to the future, and Randy Orton, Batista. So.
And it's like, it's actually funny because when you saw he even like, where Triple H was even big, was like molding and bigging up Randy Orton, he's pushing him. It's like to say, like, you know, like the coal to turning him into the next diamond.
Yep.
And also with like Batista, again, like Batista even being tagged up with Flair, that as you said, Stretch, that is masterful because, like I said, you're learning from you're tag teamed up with the dirtiest player in the game. Like, of course, to everybody else, the fans, they're seeing just Ric Flair, just like, okay,
Right.
like why? What's the point of this team? But it's like, no. Yes, Ric Flair is clearly much older, but it's still Ric Flair. It's still
Right.
Ric Flair, the dirtiest player in the game, the man. You know, the $50,000 suits. Like, no matter what style and profiling, like, you're learning from this man. You're learning from this man, and then you're also learning from the likes of Triple H, Cerebral Assassin.
It was a real bond, and
It was,
I think
and
people
even at
don't
times.
really understand that.
Yeah, and even at times where, there was a couple times where, even with Randy, he kind of fell astray, and he wasn't always there, so to speak. They never gave up.
Right.
Like, Triple
Right.
he never, initially with this group, he never gave up on anybody in his group. He never gave up on Flair when he was down and out. He never gave up on when Batista was got injured. They didn't even replace him. It was like, all right, Batista's injured, we're just gonna hold out on him until he comes back. Because Triple H's mind, this is the only way that this is gonna work. And no matter what, he's still stuck with it. And I think you gotta give kudos. You gotta give kudos to Triple H, and also even give kudos to Flair for, like, making sure that this faction stayed together. Yeah. I honestly believe this is definitely going to be a future Hall of Fame. They're future Hall of Famers in their own right.
This faction, guaranteed. They deserve, as a faction, guaranteed.
Yeah, they deserve if they're not going to be the main card of the Hall of Fame, they deserve it. But they definitely deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Like, it's just when they're going to do it. That's just all we wait for.
Right.
I had a little adage to put to that as well. We do big up, the faction itself. We do big up, how it, molded these newer stars. But you also have to we mentioned the down and out portion of Ric Flair. You have to realize that Evolution was a very big part of Flair getting his flair back, as you can say.
Yes.
If nobody has watched the Evolution documentary of, the making of the faction and stuff like that, like, Triple H was behind Rick the whole way. He said, yo, we see you, basically Rick was jobbing at some point. He didn't look like, he had any spirit in him to wrestle. He didn't look like he had any passion to do anything. Triple H brought that love and that passion right back out of him. And Evolution, you've seen that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think all in all, they just had fun, and I've stated this on previous episodes. The best, it seems like, and with life, it's like the best things come when they're fun, and they just had fun. But with that fun came success. I mean, you look at all the title runs. QS said it earlier. They had the titles. They had all the titles on Raw, and I mean, to point out one specific person, Randy Orton's very first IC title run was insane. So yeah, Evolution is a wonderful pick.
I think in total, I believe the title total between those four was like 43. You got Rick at 16. You have Triple H at 14. You have Randy. Randy at, he said he's still at 13. He's not a 14-time champion.
He's not a 14-time champ?
No, he's
wow. Yeah, you're right. Wow.
And Randy was.
And Batista's what?
I believe. I don't know. I don't remember.
5?
I'm wrong. I think he's at 5 or he was at 7. And then counting the IC title reigns.
Oh. Then hell, they're much more than that.
It's literally all in total. Yeah, it's almost close to 43 or 45. Like, in total, their title reigns. It's just like just from individually, that's how much from their title runs individually, but all together, they literally, it's just like, you don't have another faction that has just that much gold with just those 4. You don't.
Right.
You're not gonna find that. You're never gonna find that. I don't know if that's ever gonna be duplicated again.
Yeah.
That remains to be seen, but I do say that, like, just to start this off and hit it out the park, it's only best we got to come out with Evolution.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, Striker,
Yes, sir.
what you got next, sir?
Whew, well, it's no surprise that I have to pick one of my favorite factions. My captain, my captain. I have to pick Suzuki Gun as my faction. It won't be too long with mine. I don't think it's needed to be said that they are a great heel faction, amazing heel faction. I personally think Suzuki deserves way more championships than he has, but he's had feuds with Pro Wrestling Noah. He's been around for a very long time. He's fought against Jushin Thunder Liger. He's fought against a bunch of legends. He's a legend in his own right. But the membership list of Suzuki Gun is nothing to scoff at either.
Epic.
So let me run back to the
Hey,
origin.
Striker,
Yes.
real quick. Just for our listeners and viewers, who, and we don't mean any disrespect when we say this, but who doesn't look outside of the United States when it comes to pro wrestling, Suzuki Gun is a faction in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Also, as he previously stated, Pro Wrestling Noah. And we will be reaching, we said this a while ago, but we will be touching other promotions and promotions outside of the US, because they are just important as the promotions that are in the States, because without those, some of these people who we all know and love, we would not know by any means. So, Striker, sorry.
Well said, sir. Well said. So I'm just gonna harken back onto the origin. The origin was a Suzuki Gun. So if you don't know, it was actually originally Kojima Gun, run by Satoshi Kojima, which was a very big character at the time of, I believe, around the 2010-2011 time, where he was in the IWGP heavyweight title picture. Kojima had a faction called Kojima Gun, in a sense that he had Taichi and Taka Michinoku, which is a part of the current Suzuki Gun, and a former member of Nosawa, Rongai, and MVP, which we know of WWE fame. MVP was also an IWGP Intercontinental Champion.
The first.
As well.
First one.
The first, and that's very big, especially for a black
There's only one
wrestler. Especially for a black wrestler in a foreign promotion, that is huge to be the first of anything. So we'll just get into the traitorous ways and how Suzuki Gun came about. We had Taichi and Taka Michinoku basically turn on Kojima with a returning Suzuki, and from there, they started to build. We ended up getting Lance Archer coming back, to New Japan, and he ended up running roughshod with his partner Davey Boy Smith, or Harry Smith at the time.
Son of the legendary,
British Bulldog, Davey Boy
British
Smith.
Bulldog. I don't know why I just blanked out on everything just now. That is disappointing.
And we also had. So imagine we have MVP, but I also have to speak about Shelton Benjamin. Like, how could we forget me? Insider joke. Yep. So we had Shelton Benjamin and MVP, which are currently in the faction right now in WWE. So the apple doesn't really fall too far from the tree, which is kind of funny. Then we have Doki and El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, which actually defected from Pro Wrestling Noah, when it was considered one of the hidden traitors on Noah's side to join Suzuki Gun. As for a faction, I will say they use any nefarious means necessary. We have Taichi with the Iron Glove, or the mic stand occasionally when he needs it. We have Suzuki, who likes to basically brutalize you to the point that you can't stand up. Has that sleeper hold.
Does brutalize you. He will murder you in the ring if he could. If it was legal, he would do it.
So I would say his sleeper hold is legit. You know, the God style pile driver, very, very dangerous move. And when he hits you with that thing, you're definitely not waking up from that.
Yep.
The former member Lance Archer, who is now part of AEW, Lance Archer used to just run through everybody. There was no possible way or any possible being that could stop this man if he wanted to destroy anything. But they used to run through New Japan like hell.
Mm-hmm.
They still do it now, but I think with the pandemic, you know, it's kind of cooled down. But as you can see, if nobody knows, Suzuki just recently won the Never Openweight Championship. So if that's not, you know, a little bit of a flame to their fire of them, you know, rebuilding or, you know, adding on to their adage as a faction, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
But that's it for me.
I that's a wonderful pick also. I mean, you talk about factions who truly do just run roughshod through an entire two entire rosters.
Yep.
I don't think anybody
to the point that Noah had all their heel factions joining up with the face factions to stop Suzuki Gun. It's that crazy.
Yeah, that's bananas. Stretch, if you don't mind, I would like to go next.
By all means.
All right, so I have two. One, I won't touch on too much, but I think it is still in the New Japan realm, and I was originally going to go with Bullet Club because of how important they were and still are to the company for multiple reasons. And some of my favorite tag teams and some of my favorite wrestlers have been a part of that faction, but I'm not. I'm going with LIJ, Los Ingobernables de Japón. Hey! Oh, was that your pick? I hope that wasn't.
No, it wasn't my pick.
Oh, okay.
It was not my pick.
It was my bad.
It was not my pick.
Let me just
Actually, very relieved.
That's crazy. Let me mention the six. Well, it's 5 now, but 6 members. It was Tetsuya Naito, Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Sanada, Shingo Takagi. Takagi. Yeah, excuse me. I'm effing all of that.
The Dragon.
And Evil, whom is now part of the Bullet Club. So I just want to say, for the longest, for them being a 5-man faction, for them to have the accomplishments that they have in New Japan, because it's not like belts are just, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone, but it's not like belts are just given to these wrestlers. You truly do have to work very hard to do it. To get titles. But I'm just gonna run down something real quick. 3-time heavyweight champions, 6-time IC champion. All of that was Naito. Also the first dual champion. 4 times junior heavyweight champions. 2 times tag champs. 1 time junior tag. 2 time never heavyweight champions. 4 times never open weight 6-man champions, and they hold Sanada, Evil, and Bushi hold the current reigns, the most reigns at 3, and that is just those specific 3. Winner of the G1 Climax, winner of the Best of the Super Juniors, winner of the New Japan Cup, 2-time winner of World Tag League, back to back. I mean, that's saying a lot. That's saying a whole hell of a lot when it comes to New Japan and their titles and the people that have held those titles. Excuse me. Now we can go back and say that anybody with anyone in New Japan honestly have had some of the best feuds, but I mean, you look at these 6 men and the feuds that they have had with Bullet Club, Suzuki Gun, Chaos, the New Japan roster, And I truly cannot tell you that there was a bad match from any of them. Naito is the leader, but I truly think Sonata is probably the breakout star out of that group. Sonata is one hell of a talent, and I cannot wait for him to hold singles gold. But that's that group. Well, once again, I just wanted to touch on that shortly. Now, I don't know if we have truly fleshed out talking about this trio slash stable, but it's time, baby, because it's the new day. I mean, how do you not? How do you not? Listen, they debuted in 2014 in November. They are still together, which makes them the longest stable in WWE history. That's number one. Number two, longest tag team title reign in history at 483 days. You can't take that away from them. You cannot. Kofi winning the WWE title and winning it with them by his side, whom people have look, I don't get paid to promote anything right now, but if you listen to the New Day podcast, if you listen to their interviews, they say all the time, people have told them, people have told Kofi, people have, you have to change. This faction isn't going to work. This will never work. You can't be together and win major titles. They have proved everybody wrong time and time again. And excuse me, I truly don't think that when it comes to factions and you talk about the inspiration that they have, I mean, I just don't see anybody who can be more inspirational than those three together. To go from, Kofi from being this excuse me, I apologize. From being, he was a good guy for so long, smiling and kissing babies. And not that that was a bad thing. Everybody loved Kofi. As that character, at the time. But Xavier Woods not really doing much. By the way, shout out to the Power Ranger types. Those were dope. And Big E, whom former Intercontinental Champion, second ever NXT champion, like, he's going on his run currently. And I used to say this all the time. I don't understand how people forget that he has held these titles just because he was in a tag team for so long. That's ridiculous to me. He beat one of the best in Seth Rollins for that second NXT title, and that match was dope. And Rollins was already part of the Shield at that point. So that's also saying a lot. Look, they have a cereal. You know what I mean? Like they'll probably be part of the reason why, well, them and CM Punk, why ice cream bars are back. Like the New Day have done so much, and for a fact, all they do is have fun. I don't think anybody can use pop culture references like they can. No one can. They're everything they do. At any time, the three of them together, hell, even not together, but truly the special things that happen when those three are on the mic is incredible. Mm-hmm. Is incredible. They've turned people. Xavier had the wherewithal and the genius to turn Kofi into a bad guy, to make the fans hate him. That's special to me. That's special. And those three have just done wonderful things for the company. I think they're one of the few tag teams. No, let me change that. They're one of the few all black stables to have everyone enjoy what they do. Even when you booed them, you enjoyed what they do. And like I said, the longest reigning tag champs, SummerSlam 2015 in Brooklyn, at that fatal four-way match. you know, to the Raw the next day, them coming out singing their own version of New York, New York, you know, all the way up to Roadblock 2017 when they lost the titles to Cesaro and Sheamus. And I don't know why Cesaro is always part of the teams that seems to take the titles from them. But them and the Usos, of course.
Tyson Kidd.
All respect to the Usos. I mean, and speaking of the Usos, the New Day and the Usos, probably some of the best tag team matches and promo work ever.
Of this decade, definitely. They get a special place in my heart for two reasons. One, they were able to roll with the punches because initially when they debuted, they did like the whole like church like kind of minstrel thing. It was like a lot of people weren't feeling it, you know, and they were able to tweak it and bring a little bit of their own personalities even more into it, and they were able to get over as heels. Secondly, I think they have a special place in my heart because they were able to get over like really like absurdist comedy very well. Like some of the things they were talk about, it's like, oh, unicorns and the power of positive. It's like, who the fuck talks about this? Like, you know, and I'm just sitting there, and this guy like Big E is coming out with pancakes in his freaking singlet, and he's like pouring cereal down kids' throat.
It's all in the hips, baby.
And all that stuff speaks to how marketable they are and how smart they were to branch out into other things. Like, if you would have told me anytime last decade that a wrestler would have their own brand of cereal and pancakes and pancake mix and stuff like that, I probably would have looked at you like you had three heads. But they were able to get that stuff over and sell a lot of merchandise in the process. So kudos to them. They're I'm not afraid to say they're one of the best tag teams of all time. I'm really not.
I will also say, without them being together and doing what they do, Xavier wouldn't have Up, Up, Down, Down. And Up, Up, Down, Down, to me personally, is one of the best things on YouTube. I mean, they show the wrestlers outside of wrestling, like truly show who they are. And I think that's one of the most important things. And they have had, I mean, I want to say everybody, but they have had so many people. He's over 2 million subscribers. Like, because of him, so many people have had, you know, the limelight shown on them. He has his own title. You know what I mean? Like, this is, the New Day have broken barriers. They have torn down walls. I completely agree with Stretch. You know, one of the greatest trios, stables, whatever you want to call them, of all time. I could not do this episode just like last week's episode. It was a disservice to talk about managers, valets, advocates without speaking about Paul Heyman. To me, it is a disservice for us to do this episode and for me not to bring up the New Day. I will always appreciate what they have done for the business. And I might add, one of the very few people in the WWE who have been able to branch out against other wrestlers, even though it's video games, from another company.
That's true.
In some type of, and it wasn't even a cross promotion. It was just them loving video games, but them being them, and for Vince to go, okay, go ahead. You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure he had to get their blessing for it. Yeah. Or they have to get his blessing, for it. You know, and we are talking about the Elite. You know, we all, you know, Xavier and Kenny Omega are like that. So, you know, I just think they are probably, you know, like Evolution, they are groundbreaking. You know, I think they will go down in history as, you know, and there's a lot of teams, a lot of groups as one of the top 5 of anything. By the way, they went toe-to-toe with The Rock.
On the mic.
Toe-to-toe. So, once again, that's saying a lot. So, New Day, shout out to you.
I talk to you. So, my pick, when I usually look at factions and groups, I think that the aim of making a faction and group is to get like a singular star over. Like you want to get at least one guy over to the point where it's like, okay, this is a talent that we're going to push. This is a main event guy who's ready or whatever have you. But the group that I'm about to mention, I don't think gets talked about enough for the stars that they made as far as like within that group and their trajectory throughout wrestling and some of the subject matter that they were talking about. Who do you think it is? Go ahead. No, absolutely not. My pick, believe it or not, is actually the Nation of Domination.
Yep.
And
I knew you was going there.
The Nation of Domination, as far as being able to get over one singular star, I think the biggest star to me in the history of the wrestling business is probably The Rock, especially considering where he is now. He was able to use wrestling to get into Hollywood. He's Hollywood's highest paid actor, and a lot of that stuff doesn't happen if he doesn't become a member of the Nation of Domination.
Yep.
But as far as like even before we even get to The Rock, like the formation of the Nation of Domination, we have Ron Simmons, who is probably legit one of the strongest athletes to ever compete in a wrestling ring, number one. He's a college football Hall of Famer from Florida State. When he changed his gimmick.
First black world heavyweight champion.
Yes, first black world heavyweight champion. Absolutely, for officially recognized world heavyweight champion. Which is a major accomplishment. Representation matters, of course, and this is primarily why I picked the Nation of Domination. The whole saying representation matters, but he changed his gimmick from Farouk Assad, which was like this modern day gladiator, and I know Kyle remembers Farouk wearing the blue helmet and everything. Yep. It was completely ridiculous. But when he radically changed like to this Malcolm X, like, nation, for lack of a better term, Nation of Islam like figure on WWE television, it was radical. Like I've never seen anything like that before. I don't think we ever will again, personally, because of some of the subject matter that he was talking about. This was like the first black wrestler that I could remember that was openly talking about racial discrimination in a federation that was predominantly white, number one, had never really had any black single stars up until that point, because if you remember, Ahmed Johnson was the first black intercontinental champion. He was in fact the first black singles champion, and Farouk was addressing all this stuff openly and aggressively at that. So he gets this faction together and the crazy thing was, this wasn't like a black supremacist group. Like he had white members in the group, like PG-13 were the rappers, this tag team from Memphis. PG-13 were the rappers. Crush was in the group, who's a Hawaiian, a very large, he was like the muscle of the group, a very large Hawaiian.
Nugget. Sorry.
Owen Hart was also a member later on, right? And Savio Vega, who was a Puerto Rican, who was in the group as well. Yeah. So it was a diverse group, and they're like raising the fist and doing by any means necessary and stuff like that. But you enter, like the WWE had like the faction wars. So Savio and Crush get fired from the group. They splinter off, form their own groups. So the Nation is effectively rebuilding at this point. D'Lo Brown was a member of the Nation. He was kept. He fired everybody. You enter Kama Mustafa, and of course the then Rocky fledgling face of Rocky Maivia at the time, who was added to this group and got to grow with this group. We were talking about evolution and sitting under the learning tree. Ron Simmons at that point had reached the top of the mountain and was still a prominent member of the wrestling scene. He was in this prominent group. Rocky Maivia, Rock, Dwayne Johnson, whatever you want to call him, got to learn under Ron Simmons, and he got to turn heel. And in the process of turning heel, he cuts the promo of why he joined the Nation of Domination. Again, they blurred the lines, like, he got to address like the whole Rocky die and Rocky sucks thing. And it was brewing in his chest because he was so damn angry at the fact that he was just told, just go out there and smile, regardless of what they say about you. Just go out there and smile. Shoot. And he finally got to unload everything that was on his chest. And one of the memorable lines that The Rock says during that time is like, this isn't a black thing. This isn't a white thing. Rocky Maivia is a lot of things, but sucks isn't one of them. And he got to grow and he got to learn with that group. Fast forward a couple of years, they add Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, to the group, courtesy of The Rock. And The Rock at this point is getting so red hot and getting so good at his character that he's starting to steal the show a little bit from Farouk, and he's cultivating himself. Like, you know, Farouk would talk, and like The Rock would look into the camera, like, you know, there's an infamous gif about that, where like he's talking and like you just see The Rock like kind of roll his eyes at Farouk, and eventually like the tension builds up and Farouk gets turned on by the nation, and The Rock assumes leadership of the nation, and he brings in Owen Hart, you know, and they become like co-leaders. But at that time, like, I don't want to spend too much time just talking about like the history of the nation. Like what I mentioned earlier, I think the purpose of a faction is to get over at least one guy as like a star. But the nation really were able to get over almost everybody that was in that group at that time. You know, you look at the trajectories of the people that are in it. D'Lo Brown was the first guy to win the European and Intercontinental Championship. Being a double champion in WWE is incredibly rare. You see it a little bit more often, I think, today, but back then that was a
one
huge,
of the first,
huge
right?
accomplishment. Yeah, he's one of the first and few double champions you would see in WWE. The Kama Mustafa later on became the Godfather. He's a WWE Hall of Famer, a former Intercontinental Champion, Tag Team Champion in his own right. You know, and one of the most memorable characters of all time, especially given the content matter of the Attitude Era. We have a wrestling pimp. I don't think that you could ever.
And I'm sorry to cut you off. Two characters, because people do also remember him as Papa Shango. So I think
it's Papa Shango, right?
I think
and that was before the nation. Yeah,
I think the nation. You know, you remember him as Papa, but you know, I think the nation and the Godfather gimmick really did, you know, put him into that Hall of Fame status.
Absolutely. A lot of people often wonder, like, you know, you have to, people, you always have to remember, I think, that.
Stretch, real quick, I'm sorry. QS, say that again.
No, I said we always.
Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
I think that it's often forgotten that in the wrestling business, it is much better to be remembered than the participant. And if anything, the Godfather, regardless of what anybody thinks of the quality of his character, the quality of his work, he will always be remembered for that character and the fun that he brought with that character. You know, you enter somebody like Mark Henry, who's had a long, strange trip through WWE, and took him quite a while to reach the pinnacle of winning a World Heavyweight Championship, but he got there, and he is involved in, I think, some of the most memorable angles. I think the run that he had when he won the world title is one of the most underrated runs of all time in WWE history, especially for a big man, where in today's climate, the athletes are a lot better, they're a lot smaller. I think, I'm not going to say big men are discriminated against because they will always get looked at first, but it's a little bit of a stigma to be a big man, I think, in professional wrestling in today's era, because they're automatically going to assume that you don't know how to wrestle. But with that aside, Mark Henry, you know, being sexual chocolate directly after the Nation of Domination, you know, I thought that was amazing. You know, and his Hall of Pain run, I don't think will ever be understated. And Owen Hart, God rest his soul, you know, went on to become a multi-time tag team champion. I don't think that he would have been long for the wrestling business because, you know, he wanted to focus on his family and get out, but God rest his soul. He contributed, I think, as far as like the development of those guys, I don't think there's any question that he had to have contributed to that. But the run of The Rock, obviously being born from the Nation of Domination, I don't think is anything that can be understated. If the Nation of Domination doesn't happen, we don't get The Rock. And I think that is a huge, huge impact on the history of professional wrestling as a whole, let alone the WWE.
Right.
You know, but as far as like, I don't think that we will ever see a group as realistically controversial as the Nation of Domination tackling the issue of race, like within wrestling boundaries. I think that's incredibly huge and so understated is some of the stuff that they do.
I just want to say, and it coincides with my pick with the New Day. Yes, it was different times. You know, the 90s was, for lack of a better term, majority of the 90s was controversial.
Less politically correct.
Right. Yeah. When it came to wrestling, when it came to comics, when it came to music, TV show, you know, just all in all, I think the 90s truly pushed the envelope of what you can say and what you couldn't say. But when it comes to what Stretch was talking about, when it comes to speaking about the racial discrimination, we did the Black Lives Matter episode previously, and I feel that especially now with the New Day, Kofi and Big E were coming out. Originally they did the bans for Xavier because Xavier is hurt, but then as things progressed, they started putting people's names, and even on Twitter, and all three of them, Twitter, Instagram, excuse me, all three of the members of the New Day
Right.
on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook would speak about different things that people don't know about necessarily, or put shine a light on police brutality and other things. I think once again, without the nation pushing that envelope initially in wrestling, we
Right.
don't get the New Day being able to speak freely and kneel in the ring and promote shirts that aren't being sold by by WWE shop. I think the nation is, and it's funny because that was really who I thought she was going to pick from the jump. I was like, I can't think of anybody else other than the Four Horsemen. Um, but I think the
I had
nation.
another pick. I just,
Oh, I bet you did.
I had a couple picks, but
There's too many. But I think the nation, once again, even their feuds, I think feuds are important when it comes to factions and teams and things like that. But their feuds with DX, I mean, DX did one of the funniest promos probably in wrestling history against the nation. So I mean, you don't get that without the nation, but you don't get the impact that they truly did bring, not only to wrestling but to pretty much American culture. Um, you just don't get it. You don't get it. And once again, The Rock, the greatest wrestler of all time, fight me. Um, I'm just saying, just saying. Uh, but you don't get him really just being him at that point. One of the few times you just give a wrestler a mic and go talk. you know, I think, and I think even with that moment with The Rock speaking that, you don't get CM Punk's
Pipe bomb.
pipe bomb. You don't get AJ Lee's pipe bomb. You don't get people forget about that. 'Cause she ripped those girls alive. But sorry. I think the nation I think the nation is highly underrated for a lot of things. And people should truly put respect on their names. But anybody got honorable mentions? Because I mean, we all probably have a million of them. Let's be real.
All right, let's get the Horsemen out of the way now, shall we?
Four Horsemen.
To me, regardless of the incarnation, the Four Horsemen is probably the greatest faction of all time. That's just me, as an old school wrestling fan. But the other faction I was going to talk about, I came to the conclusion of picking between one of two factions. And the other faction I was going to talk about was the Dangerous Alliance in WCW.
Yeah.
Because that collection of talent in the Dangerous Alliance, you have Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson, who are probably two of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time, and two of the most underrated guys in all of the business, I think. You have Larry Zbyszko, who is a former world heavyweight champion in AWA, and a damn good tag team wrestler and a damn good technical wrestler in his own right.
Yep.
You have the young up-and-coming star, Steve Austin, who was, sitting under the learning tree of all this talent, and the heavy hitter, the main guy, Ravishing Rick Rude.
Yep.
That is a collection of talent that I don't think could be superseded in a lot of factions. So the Dangerous Alliance was going to be the faction I was going to talk about if I didn't pick.
By the way, I'm wearing my Dragon Ball Z shirt for the New Day coming out as Saiyans. Oh, I know I keep bringing them up. That's the other thing. Without them, I don't think cosplaying as wrestlers would be wrestlers cosplaying would be as big as it is right now. I just want to mention that also.
That's a little true.
I also would like to mention that most Saiyans are deadbeat dads. They're gone.
But yet everybody still wants to beat them.
We will have a special episode on that, everyone. Look out for that. We'll be dissecting this.
Listen. If my hair goes blonde at one point, just know I'm Kamehameha and I'm destroying something.
Well, listen. I don't care if your hair goes blonde, as long as you continue to take care of your kid.
Oh, always.
That's fine.
They're already ahead of the curve.
Right.
Exactly.
Real quick.
The train. I don't want to hear nothing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So my quick honorable mention, and I feel like it would be very typical to do it, but because of the impact that they had, was definitely the NWO. I don't think the Attitude Era really could have. I don't think the Attitude Era would have flourished as much as it did if Nash and Hall did not go to WCW. And then, we all know they had 500 different people within that brand, but even them breaking off into the Wolf Pack, I think was very important. To be honest, I would have really liked to talk about the NW Wolf Pack specifically, mainly because within the NWO, there was a number of people that did shock you, when they became members. I think Stevie Ray is a perfect example. But you were able to get Conan, Sting, Lex Luger, Kevin Nash, and Mr. Perfect all on one team. I mean, Sting and Sting was probably the most important, considering he was fighting the NWO for so long. So that was my honorable mention. Still do this to this day. It's part of me and my daughter's handshake. Not afraid to say it.
I say for me, another honorable mention. We can jump over to TNA. I would say that doesn't get talked about much is the Main Event Mafia.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about, not even both
incarnations.
Is it Fortune as well?
No. Fortune. That's a whole different.
Yeah. Don't.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't want to talk about Fortune.
How rude.
We're talking about the original
Fortune.
Like the original incarnation of the Main Event Mafia, which was the likes of Sting, the likes of Booker T, the likes of Scott Steiner, Kevin Nash.
Sir, the leader.
Kurt Angle, he was the leader after Sting got pushed out. But I'm talking
No, Kurt Angle started the whole thing.
You're right. He did start the whole thing. My mistake. He did start it. And but then they brought it back again.
How rude.
But then they brought it back again when it was Sting. There was Sting, and he was
Sting was really the leader at that point. But when they brought Sting, Angle, Samoa Joe, Matt Morgan,
and Rampage Jackson.
Rampage Jackson.
Rampage Jackson was part of Main Event Mafia.
Why?
So look, ain't it
cross promotion? All right.
Never questioned it. I just loved what I saw, but I love just love the fact that Main Event Mafia, they had just as much of such a focal point in TNA. They were even going against the likes of Aces and Eights for the longest. That group alone, and it was honestly that was a group of all world champions at one point. They were all world champions.
Yeah, all 5 of them.
Yeah, so that was one incarnation where I say that needs honorable mention. And of course, we got to go with the corporation.
Yeah.
The good old corporation, and of course, the long conglomerate of the corporation, from Gerald Briscoe to Pat Patterson to Torrie to Test to Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon,
Triple H, Stephanie,
Triple H, X-Pac, Stephanie, the corporation itself. Rock, when he was the corporate champion, this long conglomerate, and of course you already knew the true leader of the corporation, of course, is always going to be Vince McMahon. But it just that, if I would say that was the first time that you actually saw faction where it really was a conglomerate. Mm-hmm. You just, no matter what, it just made sense to, if you can't beat them, join them. You join with the boss, because again, this is the boss of the company. It's his group. And I would like to always laugh and say that the likes of the corporation. If you didn't have a faction like the corporation, you would never have a faction like the Dark Order.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have that type of corporate esque. The only difference is the corporation wasn't going. Of course, the corporation wasn't going out before, handing out manila envelopes to people like to get people to join. It was just simply put. It's like, this is the boss. This is the boss. This is his group. This is what he wants. Join up with him, because it just made sense. It made sense to join up with him because they ended up being almost not even just a conglomerate. It was almost like an empire, because then it went from him bringing in DX into the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
It then ended up being the corporate ministry when they aligned themselves with the likes of the Ministry of Darkness. Another honorable mention of the faction.
Crazy.
Where that was the first time that you actually saw a cult. You actually saw a cult, literally, like, and this is back in the Attitude Era. We were seeing a cult doing this much damage. Like, you're never gonna see this again, where you're actually seeing people like get with blood being put on their heads when they're like being initiated into the group, and then they get crucified, and then they're being crucified, and that's how they got brought in. Or better yet, they're just crucified. You're just crucifying your opponents to get into the minds of. To get into their minds, you're crucifying their family members. Like, you can never forget that time when the Undertaker had even was trying to crucify Ken Shamrock's sister.
Yeah,
You'll never forget that time. Like, he was about to crucify a woman on live TV. Like that in itself, like things like the corporation, the corporate ministry, or even the Ministry of Darkness. Those are definitely the honorable mentions of like stables and factions that they set the tone. They set the tone. And it's just hard to follow up through. Like, without the corporate ministry, you wouldn't have a cult like the Wyatt family.
Yep.
It just keeps going on and on and on. You wouldn't have these type of groups if you didn't have these initial groups during the Attitude Era and the golden era in the 80s and the Ruthless Aggression Era with Evolution. You wouldn't have you wouldn't have the factions that you see today.
Excuse me. I just want to mention two things real quick about those picks. One, the Main Event Mafia. Without them, I think y'all should really look into that, because that was really like TNA's like golden
era. Yeah.
It was already in it, but it definitely like excelled it. Because the Main Event Mafia, the reason they were together was because they felt like the younger talent had no respect, and I think that was very important, because then it became the Main Event Mafia versus Frontline, which 3D or the Dudley Boys ended up spearheading them, AJ Styles. Like, it was incredible. The second thing is, without the Ministry of Darkness and the corporation and that entire conglomerate, we wouldn't have one of the best sound bites in wrestling history, which was, "It's me, Austin." I mean, they tried to crucify Stephanie, for Pete's sake.
It was me
all along.
It was me all along.
I mean, one of the best sound bites in wrestling history.
Yeah, like nobody thought. Who would have really thought that Vince McMahon was the higher power in this?
I didn't think so.
Because everybody thought like this higher power that the Undertaker was looking up to. It was like, so is he talking about God? Like, are they gonna like put God on TV? Like, it just made sense.
I mean,
and you're seeing this
the
man,
other guy.
You're seeing like this individual like in a cloak, and you're thinking like he's like a Sith Lord. You're just like, oh wow,
right.
And then the whole time it's Vince, and it's just like, wow. And it made you realize, it's like, okay, yeah, it's the boss of the company, but it made you realize, like, yo, Vince really was cool, because you did that to your own daughter. You were going to let your daughter get crucified. You let your daughter get kidnapped and crucified just to basically, like, instill power, or just to, like, make your enemy in Austin a living hell. Like, you felt to go that far to just make the life of Stone Cold Steve Austin, like, you just wanted him miserable, and you to these lengths to just like align yourself with basically this man that's on your roster, and he's basically seen as the devil, and you're like, you're not only scared of him, you're scared of his brother just as much as his brother. And it just was like, wow, it even got to the point. Also, with the Ministry of Darkness, the Ministry of Darkness is the only other group that we've known that was actually hanging people on television.
Yep, very true.
That match at WrestleMania, you never got to see that again.
Yep.
God knowing, it's a good thing we're never going to probably get that in this era. Probably
and we never should.
Never should.
We never should. You got one?
Well, I'm gonna continue a little bit of Suzuki Gun because I completely didn't mention Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr.
Yes.
Zack Sabre Jr. is a fuck. Oh God! When we talk about technicalities, we talk about Daniel Bryan's, we talk about AJ Styles in a way, and we talk about Samoa Joe and stuff like that. But Zack Sabre Jr. is one of the best technical wrestlers. Yeah. And Kurt Angle, excuse me. You can't speak about technicality in the ring and not speak about Zack Sabre Jr. And they are also the current IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, I believe.
Yep.
The Dangerous Tekkers, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you're right.
That's a proper name. Okay. And I
mean, just the way he bends the body. Sorry, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's
nobody bends the body like Zack Sabre Jr. does.
But Suzuki Gun, just as a stable, they make you cringe with how physical they are.
Right.
And the things that they do make you be like, oh my God, what's going to happen to somebody's body parts at some point in time. But what I really wanted to speak about was another New Japan faction, which I think we should have definitely spoken about. Chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos is history. Chaos is history from New Japan. When I say you have Shinsuke Nakamura, you have Okada, you have the Future that was in Chaos and defected. You had Jay White. You had Naito was in Chaos at one point for over a year. Defected, made his own group. Let me see who else. Let me just get a little bit of background here.
You have Yano. You have you got
Brian Kendrick was a member.
You got Brian Kendrick. You have Rocky Romero and Trent. You have actually Jay Lethal.
Jay Lethal, yeah. Jay Briscoe was in there too.
I was about to say the Briscoe brothers were part of Chaos. I mean, Chaos for the things that those members have done for New Japan is insane. I mean, IC title reigns, heavyweight title reigns, tag both junior and regular heavyweight title. Yeah. I mean,
just the amount of people that were in Chaos originally and defected. That list alone is Hall of Fame worthy.
Can I say something really quick? Chaos is actually father to one of my favorite. Like, I think what makes some factions interesting is that they have like factions within a faction.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like the NWO had the original Wolfpack, which was Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Six, aka X-Pac, aka One Super Kid, whatever you want to call them. We're like the offshoot of the Fabulous Freebirds, whatever have you. But Chaos had Roppongi 3K.
Yeah,
I always thought that was so cool.
I love Roppongi 3K.
Roppongi 3K
showing yo.
Yeah, Rocky.
Yeah,
Roppongi 3K is one of the, I think, most underrated acts in all of New Japan. I don't think they get enough credit as far as like.
I agree.
Bringing that type of like showmanship to New Japan, because New Japan has always looked as like so serious, and it's all about fighting spirit and everything. Like these were, I always talk to people like kind of like the westernization of like Japanese wrestling. I think they're a big part of that.
Yeah.
Because they do bring that aspect of like showmanship and flashiness to New Japan. So I've always loved Roppongi 3K.
And to add something about LIJ real quick, I think just if Naito doesn't go to Mexico, LIJ wouldn't exist. And that whole tranquilo, which means, relax, calm, stay calm, all of that.
Very cool.
Without that persona that Naito brings back, I think that dynamic also changes New Japan. And last but not least, we can't do this without mentioning the Bullet Club.
I'm about to say, like, I know y'all not.
We can't do this without mentioning the Bullet Club. Man. We got to. I mean, Prince Devitt, aka Finn Balor. You got Fale. You got Carl Anderson. And the last member was Tama Tonga, whom is still a member. So is Fale of that promotion. I mean of that faction. I mean,
yeah.
Tama, please get that heavyweight title, bro. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Time enough.
I need you to get that
Time
title.
enough.
But I think Bullet Club, you know, reinvents that that attitude style, you know, and plus these were a bunch of wrestlers who weren't Japanese.
Right.
You know, Devitt turns on
Taguchi.
Right. Sorry, I
That was
blinked.
Taguchi,
I don't know
yeah.
why I'm blinking out tonight. He turns on Taguchi to create Bullet Club, you know. I mean, and to see him with that attitude at that time was a major was a very, 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 very serious deal. And I mean, he's won junior heavyweight titles with it, you know, the tag titles with God, the tag titles with Anderson and Gallows, the heavyweight titles with Omega. You have the Young Bucks. You have
AJ Styles.
got AJ Styles. You just have so much talent. Cody Rhodes, Adam Cole.
Yeah.
I mean, you truly have a current who's who of superstars and pro wrestlers who were in Bullet Club. Without Bullet Club, we wouldn't have AEW.
Yep.
Without Bullet Club, we wouldn't have the OC. Without Bullet Club, we wouldn't have who is now Finn Balor.
Yep.
I mean, thank you. Like, there. We can go on, and we will touch this and probably speak about some of these honorable mentions on a later date. But we must close this episode out. So, let's do this. QS, your socials, sir. Where can they find you at?
Of course, you guys know where to find me. You guys can find me at my @name is right there, Forever Thiefin, on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on IG. I'm actually starting to get more active again on Twitter. So of course, you know, IG.
Because the king is back. Is that why?
Of course,
back.
I talk more on social justice and either social justice or drinking or just partying in general. Like I said, you know, always be sure to reach out. You know, try to connect with me. We can try to either work something out or just, you know, if you need something to vent to, talk about when it comes to mental health, I'm available on here. You, as always, I say it like every week, you know, follow our Facebook page, the Council of Commentary. You can follow our Facebook page, you know, ask to join our group, or you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. It's the same thing, the Council of Commentary. We are available all around. We are very friendly. We love all things wrestling, comics, and all down that spectrum. Just by all means, just be sure to say hello to us. Thank you, and always thank you. Thank you always.
Yeah, Striker.
Well, the boss is here, so you can follow me. You can follow me on social media, Twitter at Striker Dragoon, IG. I made a new IG for just for, you know, this specific reason. Follow the IG at Striker Dragoon as well. Follow the council page. Follow us on IG and Twitter. You know, I don't need to ramble and repeat, so that's that.
Stretch.
I would like to mention our unofficial sponsor today. That would be the.
You got one?
That would be the legendary Smokey Robinson and his latest single, Gangbanging. It's a bop, ladies and gentlemen. Please check out that song. It's smoking that smoke.
This is why we don't take them anywhere, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my goodness.
You feeling better? Can you spell
yes.
it?
I can spell it out. Not going to, but I can spell it out today. I've lost my train of thought laughing at that song. I'm not laughing at Smokey Robinson. He's one of the most legendary artists of all time. But that song, man, I don't know who's in Smokey's corner letting him release stuff like that. But you can find me on Instagram right about there at Jador Sapio. by all means, I'll be the guy laughing at Smokey Robinson's gangbanging song and probably listening to his older stuff, like Cruising and You Really Got a Hold on Me and stuff like that. So,
And as always, you can follow. Oh God, you can follow me at Mr. Marvel 87 on Twitter, Instagram. Please follow us, talk to us. Once again, thank you. We are the Four Corners of Commentary. What are we doing? We gonna throw it up? We gonna throw it up?
Throw it up.
All right, and Wakanda forever.
Mhm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. All right, we're out. We out. Thank you, guys.
Bullets are flying.